Pranakasha livestream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we're doing an interview with Luis Garcia, actor, film producer, scriptwriter, and also father.
Yeah, one of the more challenging ones on that list. One of the most challenging. Thank you for having me on the show, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Well, so we ran into each other on Twitter, which is kind of one of the main ways that I find my guests. And turns out that right now you're in Spokane, Washington, right?
Yep, I am loving life here in Spokane Valley, Washington. Ended up here, combination of things, combination of reasons. Me and the fam wanted to leave the Portland area a few years back, and the pandemic, a combination of pandemic and my ex-wife's family needs kind of made everything happen a lot quicker. So here we are. It's a whole new life, different from Portland, even though Portland's only 5 hours from here. Seattle's about 6 hours from here. And yeah, very different way of life in this part of the world.
Yeah, I was telling you that the last time I was in Spokane, wow, it may have been a long time ago, at least 10 years ago. I was on a business trip. I was working for a bank as an IT guy, and there was a branch out in Portland in one of the office buildings down there. And the thing that was really cool was that the building was like built upon this giant rock. Like there was this huge rock that was in the lobby. And I asked around and did a little bit of research, and it turns out that rock was already there before they even built the building. So they just figured out a way to just build the whole thing around it.
Yeah,
So,
downtown is definitely pleasing to the eye. The aesthetic down there is up and coming for sure.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been there, so it's probably changed a lot. So
Sure.
yeah, so Portland, and then you lived in LA before that, right?
Yeah, there was a stint in 2014 to 2015 and 2016 where I lived in LA for a year. Got to work at Hulu. Got to produce a very grindhouse type Western while I was there, and had a great experience in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the family didn't move down as we were kind of talking about that. I was heading up to Portland every 3 weeks, once a month, to visit the children, visit the family, and we decided LA was not the place to keep raising children or raise them at all. So I came back to Portland. But Los Angeles, I mean, that was a completely different experience for me. I really think about it a lot. Good times.
Now, Hulu, of course, is the station on which the Orville is going to be premiering in a couple of months.
Fox, they went over to Hulu for original content. Awesome.
Yeah, we were hoping it was going to happen in March, but it got bumped to June for whatever reason. There's lots of theories on the internet as to why that happened.
Yeah, Hulu has stepped up their game. When I was working at Hulu, we had just gotten The Handmaid's Tale. That was the biggest thing that they had acquired at the time. They were still doing very small, like a couple of really small. Difficult People was one of their sitcoms they were doing, and I forget the other one. There was one that Jason Reitman was producing that was pretty popular, but The Handmaid's Tale really changed the game for their original content. There.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I actually spent a little bit of time in LA at the end of 2021. I'd been there before, but this was like one of the first times where it really hit me how gigantic of a place it is. So like everybody says like, well, yeah, I'm going to LA, or like I live in LA. Well, the next question is what part? Because every little district is like its own little universe.
So, what part of LA were you in?
The first time I went down there, I was in the historical district, which was actually the Latino district, which is what I discovered, because I wanted to go to a concert that was put on by Jay Lee, who's also one of the stars of The Orville, who's an excellent pianist, turns out. And I managed to find out about this concert, and I bought some tickets and went. And yeah, so and I just got myself a hotel that was within walking distance of the venue,
Yeah.
and it was actually in somewhat of a rough part of town, I discovered. But I asked the guy who owned the motel, like, is it safe to walk around? He says, yeah, it's fine during the day, just don't do it at nighttime. And
Maybe, North Hollywood, probably.
yeah. But anyways, it was on a weekend, so and it was the Latino district, and so because it was a weekend, there was like this huge um fair going on where like there was food tents everywhere, and all kinds of vendors were set up on the sidewalks and everything, and
That's
it was
awesome.
actually really fun.
Yeah.
And I got to try out some of my Spanish, and I made friends with a couple of the vendors and hung out with them for half a day. So I actually had a lot of fun just hanging
Yeah.
out down there.
Yeah.
So
People, go ahead.
I saw that part, and then but also I have an aunt who lives in Redondo Beach, which is like, really, it's on the water and it's really upscale, and it's right next to Hermosa Beach. And so and those places was like a completely different world, of course. So it's just like, and I actually didn't even get to see any of Hollywood on my last trip. So, and that of course is yet again something else. But
Something to look forward to.
yeah,
Yeah. I lived in Studio City in the Valley,
okay.
right off Coldwater Canyon. And if you go up through the hills over Coldwater, you end up right in Hollywood.
Oh, cool.
Ended up again by happenstance. A lot of things in this industry and a lot of things in my life for some reason just kind of happenstance. I was in LA for a horror film festival that me and my friend co-directed a horror film, and it got into a festival. So we went down there. While we were there, we found out that we got into Holly Shorts, which is premiering at the Chinese Theater. We found out while we were there for the first short film festival. And I was about to end my job at the startup bank in Portland. Things were just not going well there. I think all parties agreed it was not a good fit anymore. And I actually got some severance and talked to my ex and said, let's, if I can make something happen here in the next year, we should think about it as a family. And sure enough, I asked a friend of a friend who had a spot on a couch and stayed on that couch for a few months. A room opened up, and then the young kid there needed a producer for his Western. So we used to take an Uber up over the Coldwater Canyon all the time to go to the New Beverly Quentin Tarantino's theater, because he always had 2-for-1
Oh, cool.
that he chose every night, 2-for-1 for $6, double feature. And if you wanted to stay for the midnight show, it was something Quentin, usually something Quentin directed or produced.
Interesting.
Such a good time. I mean, just so much film and the Egyptian theater, so much history and energy in Los Angeles, and everywhere you meet people that are trying to do it or are doing it or have tried and failed, or currently failing and currently trying. I mean, there's just so many
Yeah.
different walks of life and people there.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. I mean, even what I've discovered is, I mean, even the quote famous actors, they're all scrambling for their next gig.
That's the thing, yeah. Unless you're on a show with residuals or syndication, you're really having to find that next gig to afford the lifestyle you've come accustomed to. And that's
Yeah.
kind of scary. Can be a scary quandary if you're having to dig around for that next paycheck. Sure.
Yeah, that's especially. I mean, especially when you have a family and kids that you're raising. That's really, that takes a lot of guts to do stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's like, but obviously you have the calling for it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's in times of not having film or TV around, I've been able to ascertain other skills that have led me into tech startup world, which has led me to my current position at a website aggregating company that we could build our own website, and having a blast there. And for some reason, the film and TV always kind of sneaks its way back in. Even if
Yeah.
you're in Spokane, I already met a producer. I'm producing his short film, Don Sano. He did a film that went to a festival a couple of years ago. I ended up knowing the actress that was in that one. It's such a small world for
Right.
the amount of reach it has. It's such a small world if you really think about it.
That's wild.
Very wild.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this Western that you produced. So, like, you ran into the person that had written the script, or how did that work?
This young kid, I always call him young kid because I'm about 20 years his senior, but we get along like we were college roommates. Young man named Isaac Medeiros. If you could think of a Sam Peckinpah type director, it's Isaac. He just makes films, no budget, some budget. He just gets actors to go out and try new things. And he was wanting to do this Western. We had just seen The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino.
Okay, I know that one.
He got into this Western craze and wrote this script. It's a really long title. Cold Chains, Hard Hearts, and Bloody Hands was the name of the script. And when I read the script, I'm like, there's no way you're gonna pull this off with limited budget, let alone or no budget. But he had enough contacts and actually was able to pull it off. And they shot in Oregon and Washington in the snow in the winter.
Oh.
The film looks beautiful. He did a lot of post-production audio work on it, kind of like they do for the spaghetti westerns, and it all worked out. And since then, he's made a couple more. I haven't served as producer on the other ones, but he's definitely on his way to getting some eyes on him for sure. But that was a great experience in terms of trying something completely new. I had never done anything, worked on a project like that. I had to hire Civil War actors, Civil War reenactment actors in full uniform.
Did they come with their own uniforms, or did you have to also get them their uniforms?
The producer Bob Olin actually had known us through another contact and brought his whole battalion with them. I wasn't on set for any of this. Actually, I did everything pre-production and post. Reason being, I was, staggering for paid work in LA and couldn't really leave for 6 weeks in the winter to shoot a no budget film. But getting all that together, we ended up meeting a costume and ammunition house that did a lot of the old Westerns in the 40s and 50s and 60s, this older couple. And so they lent us a bunch of their equipment and costuming. And so that was just a fascinating experience, actually stepping back. First period piece I've ever done.
They just lent it to you just for free, or?
It's an understanding, like, a couple $100. Here's more than you're ever going to get for this amount. Please bring it back in working order, and we'll always have a relationship. Sadly, a lot of the productions now don't use old costume houses, and obviously now, especially with all the controversies with having guns on set and things like that, people are going, and rightly so, for good reason, going toward CGI ammunition, and I don't know, just it's not as popular as it once was. Not much.
But how do you have a CGI costume and expect it to work?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, everybody's naked, but then they CGI the clothes on them or something.
It worked with Ryan Reynolds and Green Lantern. He wasn't naked, but that was a CGI outfit he had on.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a couple of films where even some of the some of the Marvel stuff, you'll see the actors and they're dressed in blue, skin tight blue with
little sensors on them,
motion capture, and so it is possible. I don't know about Westerns. I don't think I've ever seen a Western with fake costume that would kind of defeat the purpose, but I feel like period piece films are coming back. I think Westerns are definitely coming back with Yellowstone and 1883 and everything that's happening over at Paramount Plus. Those
I've seen this. I've seen the trailers for that one.
Yeah, Yellowstone's fantastic. I fell in love with that show. It's so good.
Have you ever been to the actual Yellowstone Park?
I have not, but because of my obsession with the show, I found out that where they actually film is 9 hours from Spokane. You can go there and actually stay on the Dutton Ranch, and Yellowstone Park is obviously in that area, so it's not as far. It's like 7 hours.
Yeah.
But summer, I definitely want to take some road trips with the
Yeah.
children and go see how beautiful it is. That's where that super volcano's at, right? Supposed to
Uh,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what created it. That's why it has all those hot springs.
Mhm.
So, if it ever blows,
Yeah, we're
we're going
not
to
in
be in big
California.
trouble.
Yeah, they say the blast radius is definitely going to take out Spokane, so
Yeah.
won't have
And
much
it's
time
pretty
there.
much going to change the climate of the planet.
Oh yeah, because
You
we'll have
know,
the
we'll have another ice age after that.
we'll
Yeah.
not go anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting.
Good time. Definitely different.
So, like, I'm still wondering what a producer does. Well, for one thing,
That's the
actually,
real question.
well, actually, I'll go even one step higher. What does an executive producer do? Like, for example, I just watched an episode of Star Trek Discovery,
Hmm.
and in the credits, I swear there was 10 executive producers. So, like, I mean, the joke is that all you have to do to be an executive producer is be buddies with someone on the show, and they're like, "Here, I'll make you executive producer," and that's all you got to do. And that you don't even do anything besides have your name in the credits.
Yeah,
You know?
there's a lot of different ways to answer this question, and I hope any of my filmmaker friends can correct me if I'm wrong. So my ego is I'm not an egomaniac. So as far as I'm concerned, the old school term of an executive producer is someone that used their name or their talent or their brand to draw investment into the project and or forwarded some of their money with the expectation of an ROI. So I don't know if I know like a couple of filmmakers have fronted their own films, like M. Night Shyamalan serves as EP or executive producer on his current movies because he self funds those. So he self funds it for 5 million, for instance, like a movie like Old or a movie like Glass, and then the return on those movies, depending on the budget, far surpassed the 5 million he put in. Plus, he gets to pocket all that money. So an EP either uses their brand or their name to draw investment in, or they actually put money in with the expectation, obviously, of getting an ROI back. So
Okay.
like a producer would do. A producer actually does the daily grind. They work with the director to hire mostly crew. I mean, they probably would reach out to casting directors, agents, and managers for talent as well, but they work closely with the director for helping them get their vision out there. So they're responsible for, let's say, for instance, someone really liked Richard Deakins for, good luck getting him on a shoestring budget. But let's say you like his work and you want to reach out to him to work on your film, where you would go through his manager, and your producer would normally handle those relationships, working with the director to help them get their vision.
Okay.
So I hope anyone that is out there that wants to correct me, but I'm pretty sure nowadays that's what an EP would do.
Okay. All right. So for your Western that you did with your friend,
Mm-hmm.
so you basically I think the producer is pretty much in charge of the budget too, right?
Yeah, in this case, there wasn't much of a budget to work on. So a lot of what I did was relationship building for favors and or crew. So writing out contracts. Right now, that's what I'm mostly focusing on: location agreements, solidifying location agreements, working on contracts, making sure everything's set in stone, getting insurance for the production, making sure everybody's covered legally. Right now, COVID compliance is a huge thing because the next film that I'm on takes place in Spokane, but we're filming on location in Coeur d'Alene at a studio.
Okay.
Idaho doesn't have COVID compliant rules for film. Washington does, but all of our talent is mostly Washington. So we have to, come to the agreement that if these folks are used to COVID compliance in Washington, we might as well be safe and
Do
do
the
it.
same thing.
Um,
Yeah.
but then, having to educate yourself on what COVID compliance is and making sure everyone's safe. So me and the director have been working on that. But yeah, making sure all the crew is accounted for, making sure the budget doesn't go over or under.
All the nuts and bolts. oh no, we're under budget. What do we do? We got all this extra money.
Yeah, and usually the producer on lower budget films. I always talk about this film I did for John Garcia. The Fall is a Testament of Love. I was an associate producer on that one. That's more of a scapegoat title because you're more helping the producer, and if things fall through the cracks, you're usually the one driving to, new season
Figure it
cinema,
out.
pick up the actors, gluten-free meal that you forgot to mention. That happened to me on that one.
Yeah, I've heard so many horror stories. I mean, most of what I know is I know a lot of people that have done like Star Trek fan films.
Oh yeah.
And like I was talking to this one guy who his film, which was actually came out really good. It looked really slick, and the acting was good and everything. But he was talking about how, like the day that they were shooting, there was like nobody figured out the catering,
Oh
and he
no.
was frantically calling around trying to find somebody who could deliver food. And then they got the food, but then because it was a weekend and there were all these weddings going on and stuff, he couldn't get tables and chairs or anybody to sit on.
No. Yeah, that can easily happen.
So it was just all this really nuts and bolts stuff that you never ever think about when you're watching a show. But that's the kind of things he had to deal with,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Something's always going to slip through the cracks, and that's why the producer has to have really good PAs or runners on set that can take a car, you give them the credit card, give them cash, and they can
Yeah.
go and pick up the 16, you know, recycled only cups that someone asked for. Or for me, it was always for getting vegan. This was
Or I gotta have gluten free, otherwise
yeah,
I'm gonna like start foaming at the mouth.
exactly. 2013 was when I did that, and I remember we were working on Interstate Avenue in Portland, and I got to know Interstate Avenue pretty well, um, just for doing vegan and gluten-free runs. No
Right.
disrespect to anyone with that diet, but
Yeah.
it can be a lot when you're not used to eating that way.
Yeah, my wife, we used to go to a meditation center, and my wife was in charge of the restaurant that they would have like Sunday morning programs, and then after the program, there'd be breakfast. And she was basically the chef. And because it was like a meditation center and all the yoga, there was just tons of people that were like way over the top with like what they can't eat and what they can't eat and what they can't eat.
Yeah,
And besides just being vegetarian, like some people were vegan, some people were gluten free, some people couldn't have white sugar, blah 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 blah.
a lot.
And everybody's just like, it's going to be the end of the world if they eat the wrong food.
Yeah,
And it used to drive her crazy.
yeah, it can be.
So,
It can definitely be a lot. So far, the allergy list on this production coming up doesn't seem too bad, and it was cool because I got the allergy list from the director and got to my name, and it had a bunch of question marks like, "Hey, what are you allergic to?" I'm allergic to cats, so as long as we're not near cats on set, I'll be fine. Um, but yeah, you learn a lot about people producing too. You see people in a very different light. I mean, you see them before the camera's on, and then during, and you really get to know people better, I would say, without really even talking to them, just by observing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The closest analogy I have to something like that is the orchestra that I'm president of.
Mhm.
So like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, just keeping all the musicians happy, and it's kind of similar too because it's a community orchestra. So um, almost everybody's doing it just volunteer. Yet they're really good because the scene in Seattle, music scene's really hot. So even in a volunteer orchestra, you can get really high quality musicians and put on great concerts. So it's always a challenge, keeping everybody happy and keeping yourself happy, and
Yeah,
then getting a high quality performance too.
yeah, especially with people that are volunteering their time, right?
Yeah,
That'll be hard. Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
I think that's the key. Is like you always keep your. I mean, you have to deal with all the details, and there's all kinds of frustrating things that happen, right? that you'd rather not have to deal with, but you have to. But then you always have to sort of cheer yourself up and make sure that you focus back on the vision and, the whole reason why you're doing all this.
Yeah, gotta remember that it's supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
and when it stops being fun, you gotta reassess.
Yeah.
I feel that all the time, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, I
yeah,
know, like, even in my orchestra, I'm still the president of the orchestra, and it's been around, I realized, for almost 15 years. And most presidents of boards of orchestras and stuff last about 4 years and then they burn out and they're like, I'm done with this.
mhm,
And I reached that point several times, but I couldn't really. I got close to wanting to quit, but I knew I couldn't quit because then the whole thing would fall apart.
right,
So I just kind of suffered through it, and then, but at some point, it stopped being a burden and it started being fun again. So now I'm back on upward curve. So
good.
it's enjoyable.
That's good.
Yeah,
Fun
that's
again.
yeah. So that's what kind of projects do you got going now? And I think you said you were shooting something in downtown Spokane.
Yeah, so we're shooting a few scenes in downtown Spokane for this film, Dream Cycle, with
Okay.
Monsanto, and then we're filming the rest of it in a studio in Coeur d'Alene, this
Okay.
place called Mystery Ranch, I believe, and they do a lot of local productions. It's a stunt coordinator turned director named Jerry Bucksbaum, and I met Jerry years ago when I was doing Resident Evil zombie fan films for Capcom and YouTube and full screen. And Jerry was our stunt coordinator, and he knows everybody in the industry. A lot of people know Jerry. There was a show in Spokane called, I forget that, it was a zombie show in Spokane, Z Nation, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
That's that's more sci-fi, isn't it?
no, it was a zombie esque, like apocalypse type show, and I've never seen
Okay.
it. Forgive me, all the folks in Spokane that think I should have seen it. But Jerry was the main stunt coordinator for that, and he knows how to throw people through walls. And I've seen this guy have people fall from ceilings, and he's always safe. But he owns his own studio now in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and
Interesting.
we're filming 2 days there. And then I've finally I have my two podcasts. I have the ThePonderAllPodcast, where I interview like this other artists, and then the TV Time Machine podcast is me and my friend Adam. We just deep dive into nostalgic television from any era. We have episodes, we deep dive into Full House and the aesthetic of Full House, and our season 2 premieres this week, and it's all about the best friends in TV history. So like
Hmm.
Scooby and Shaggy and Laverne and Shirley. So that's been a lot of fun, deep diving into old television shows as well. I do have a feature film that I'm in pre-production that I'm producing with my friend Adam,
Oh,
and that one's takes place in Spokane and Portland, and it's very low budget. So it's a film called Couches. It's something I wrote when I was in LA. It's about a young man that gets out of rehab and doesn't really have any place to go because he's pretty much burnt every bridge. So he joins this Couches program where he gets to couch surf with different families that'll take him in, and he's trying to get his life together and has 3 months to do it before he goes to prison if he doesn't get his life together. That's the ultimatum, is he has to get a job, have housing and get his life together, or he'll get trapped in the system. So doesn't have
interesting.
anywhere to go. So I've based that on some friends that I've seen suffer through, coming through addiction and burning bridges, and you know those folks at certain times can be hard to trust, and seeing them struggle and make their way into productive citizens and having jobs and families now, I think that there's something to be said and admirable about that, because not everybody makes it through that. So
Yeah.
this is based on, and I wrote it as if we had no money to do it. We have a little bit of a budget, but we're doing it completely different. We're using DSLR cameras and iPhone 13s, and so a lot of the actors will be shooting some of the footage themselves on their own iPhone 13,
Okay. Cool.
using some split screen, throwing the COVID storyline in there just a little bit, just for budgetary reasons.
Right.
Get away with a lot of this kind of filmmaking. So I'm looking forward to see what we come up with. We have some pretty cool talented folks involved, and yeah, you just shoot as if you shoot for the budget you have, not always for the one you want, because
Right.
people will catch on to that pretty quickly. The beer budget or champagne dreams on a beer budget doesn't always work on in film. Some people can pull it off, but I'd rather be authentic and make it as raw and real as possible, and not try to hide the fact that we don't have much. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on this year. I enjoy podcasting, and I haven't really directed a film in quite a while, since 2013. So it's time to get back out there.
That's neat.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So that one, like when you do a feature film like that, how much footage would you expect to actually shoot for like an hour and a half film?
That's a really good question. Man, it could be anywhere from 100 hours up, maybe, if you're lucky. That it adds up quick. You would be surprised how much
Right.
film, digital form film even adds up quickly. You got to find the take you want to go with. This film's going to lend itself to a lot of mumblecore or improvisational scenes where I'll let the actors just kind of go for it with going off script. I
Okay.
work really well with that type of script, and sticking to the lines when it makes sense. But also the actors do their best when they're not confined to the story.
Right.
No, I know some really big directors, like Tarantino. He really wants people on script, and it makes sense because the script is the gold. I mean, his writing is pretty much the gold standard, and the way I see it, in a lot of ways people see it. So of course, word for word, verbatim is necessary for the story he's telling.
Right.
We'll have, low budget, no budget type dramas. You want people to kind of bring more of
Bring
themselves.
something to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and from my experience, I've done well with non-actors. Even I remember when I was directing Beach Knoll Road, and back in 2013, it's my first feature that I directed. My acting partner's girlfriend, she had never acted before, but she was just basically playing herself in the story. And they have a scene where she leaves him. She's upset because he got another parking ticket, doesn't apply himself. He's smoking and drinking all day. But she in real life, she's Portuguese, and poor thing was really struggling with the lines, just really struggling. Was self-conscious about her accent. Started noticing it was taking some time. So I told her, I said, Bruna, just do all your lines in Portuguese. Don't do them in English. Just do everything in Portuguese. Don't hold back. And when we rolled and she started talking in her native tongue, it brought so much more to the scene, because he's, kind of cowering over his dinner. She's yelling and screaming at him in Portuguese. And it sounded like Desi Arnaz yelling at Lucy in Spanish. So brought a comedic element to it, brought a lot of confidence to her, made everybody feel better on set, made me feel better. Because she was struggling, and rightfully so. It wasn't her native tongue. It was very wordy dialogue. So I said, just say it like you would say it in your own language. And it looked and sounded so much better. So that's the joy of, working on low.
Right. That's just that
Low
you can
budget.
do that since, and you were the one who wrote the script, right?
Yeah, Beach Knoll Road. Yeah, it was about based on a true story. It was based on me when I was in LA trying to raise funds for another feature I was working on. Prior to that, in Portland, I had helped a lot of people with Kickstarter campaigns and Indiegogos, and help them promote, their works on my podcast, Lunch with Luis, at the time. And when it came time for, the tables to be turned and get support from folks in the community and just friends that I, thought were friends, I didn't really get much support for my, fundraising, even though I was featured on YouTube and Tube Filter, and just wasn't the right time. I mean, ended up making like no money in my Kickstarter. So I was really discouraged about that. And had two really young children. Money was starting to run out from other productions. So I spent a week in the hills in California with some friends from film school, and just kind of let loose for the week, kind of partied it out, just kind of let loose for a week, and just really realized that, being a family man with kids, that was kind of always a dream of mine as well. And I wanted to focus on that. So the story is about that. So we just reenacted basically that whole week.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's still something that is still in pre-production. A lot happened during that, and we still have to get that out. But that experience has led me to want to keep working the way I do with small to no budgets. And one of these days, if someone wants to give us a chance and give us an actual budget to work with, I mean, that's always the dream, right? Is to have the means to do it right. You want to do it right. You want to serve the story and the actors well, and asking people to work for free is just not, in a film setting at least, it doesn't always work.
Right.
But at the same time, even in big productions, a lot of things are done on favors,
Right.
or at scale. So it all depends, about the project and the timing. So
Yeah, I know how that goes.
yeah.
Well, I know, I've gotten to the point now where what I usually do, of course, my stuff is almost always with green screens and things, but
Yeah.
and I usually just have a flat rate where I tell my actors, like, I can give you $100 stipend for one session, and each session is like 1 to 2 hours. So from that point of view, it's like, well, $100 for 2 hours is actually pretty generous,
That's good.
And but then again, I mean, like, a lot of times they put a lot of prep into it, or like a couple of my actors are really super high quality, so I'm just happy to have them,
Exactly. For the
So
talent team they bring
yeah,
project.
so like, but that's the funny thing, like sometimes like my biggest expense might be like a costume that I bought that cost me like $200 or $300 because I had to piece it together from stuff that I found on eBay, and but it came out making this one really nice looking costume. And then other times you luck out and you can find something at Value Village for like $5 that works perfect, So, but it's funny how things are kind of pieced together like that, and then as like you'll like read a script and you're like, well, how in the heck can I do this scene with no money but make it work,
Yeah.
And there's tricks, as you know.
Yeah. On Beach Knoll, we my friend was renting a house in the hills with 4 other dudes, and thankfully they were just all troopers. I mean, they heard we were making a film in their house, and the house was so huge that we used different parts of the house for different locations. So
Okay, yeah.
a party scene where my character, me, gets drunk and is, basically berating all of his friends and just being a complete asshole. And we're like, okay, we'll just use the bottom part of the house for that, make it look like a whole other house. And it worked. It didn't look like anything like the top layer. So yeah, you have to get really inventive. And that's part of the, they say filmmaking and other arts are all problem solving. And so
Yeah.
that's what it's like. I like all the Star Trek theme stuff. I wanted to mention, I met a group of fellow Trekkies. I mean, there's different levels of Trekkies. I wouldn't consider myself too much of a Trekkie, because I'm sure most people can bury me in knowledge. But we ended up on Star Trek Live at the La Pantages Theater, and Uhura, the original actress who played Uhura, was in the audience. And
cool.
I mean, but between they play every version of Star Trek against a live orchestra, so it's all Star Trek music against the films and the shows,
Cool.
Animated show, and it's live.
Wow.
And the emotion from that, and just like having the actress, I forget her name, Michelle Williams, is it?
Nichelle Nichols.
Michelle Nichols.
Yeah.
In the audience,
Or Nichols, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Super overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then they cut to actual footage and snippets, from the show.
She is.
Like, this is like, so I was walking on cloud 9 after that. And I was living down in off Sunset Boulevard with my friend that summer, and we had a little place on there just for the summer, and just walking home and just being like, just beaming. It's like, wow, I just met a bunch of other fellow Trekkies, and the Star Trek live performance, they totally nailed it. So I can't wait to try that again.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Star Trek's a blast. So yeah, and then of course, the Orville
Hmm.
is. Some people say the Orville is better Star Trek than a lot of Star Trek now,
And hearing
and
that a lot.
yeah,
First
it's a
season,
great show.
it is a really good show, and
Yeah.
I mean, the pilot is different than a lot of the show. Obviously, pilots usually are different. They're kind of like
Right,
a blueprint, see what works. But
right.
I think it was the episode where one of the characters was about to give birth, but they weren't sure. It was supposed to be the female of the species, but
Yeah, about
that,
a girl.
yeah, that's
That
when I
was
was like,
good.
okay, this is good stuff. This is like
Hmm.
you're touching on social issues,
Right,
just like the old Star Trek did,
exactly.
but you're doing it in a very clever way. And I think that's why people didn't know what to make of it the first season. Like, wait a minute, this is really good.
Right. Well, what I heard was that since it was South MacFarlane,
Hmm.
he had to sell it to Fox as a comedy and kind of a spoof because everybody knows him as that. But what he really wanted to do was really kind of a serious
Yeah.
Star Trek type of show. But to get it going, he had to throw in a lot of Seth MacFarlane type of jokes. And then as it started rolling, then they kept some of the comedy, but that the comedy became more of an afterthought, and then the actual writing and the actual Star Trek type of sci-fi, thought-provoking type of stuff was what
Yeah.
started coming through, which is what he really wanted to do in the first place.
I heard another rumor too, and
Yeah.
I like that he did that. I heard that he had the chance to pitch another Star Trek show before Orville, and he pitched this premise, and they were like, no. And so he's like, okay. I mean, he's got all
I'll
the
make my own. Yeah.
yeah, he's got all the pitching power in the world. I mean, not only did his show get canceled, Family Guy, but then it got brought back because of the amount of money it made in DVD sales.
Yeah.
And then he started with American Dad and Cleveland Show, and the list
Yeah.
goes on. But I mean, I like Ted. I think he's a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
He hits the notes, and so I'm glad that the Orville's back. I mean, that's good. What season? This would be season 4 coming back, right?
No, this is season 3 coming up, and then everybody's hoping for a season 4, but the season 4 is still up in the air because season 3 hasn't even started yet. It's not like Paramount Plus where they green light a season before it, like Strange New Worlds hasn't even shown yet, and they've already greenlit season 2 of it, you know, and stuff like that.
They did that with Superman and Lois too on what is it now? It's not the CW anymore. Is it the CW? I can't keep track with how many times they change, but that was one show. I'm not the biggest DC fan, but when I saw that one, I was in love with the premise. You know, Superman and Lois's parents with teenage sons. That's cool. They greenlit it on, at the pilot, greenlit season 2 already. I'm like, that's a pretty bold move. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah. Well, now I'm gonna throw in my rant about Cowboy Bebop. As far as I'm concerned, that show was awesome.
Yeah,
and I can't believe they killed it. Like, I swear, like 3 weeks after it was released.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I guess you never know what's going on behind the scenes with the show. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it was a great show. I thought it was brilliant on a whole bunch of different levels. Like the music was great. The whole genre I thought was really cool. The way they had like sci-fi, but they're on planets where people are driving like 70s Camaros,
Yeah, it's not a Western
film, the way that it threw all that stuff together and just kind of bent your brain. And the actors were great. I thought the script was great. I thought everything about it was great. Cinematography was amazing, And so I don't know what happened with that show.
It might. It makes you wonder if Netflix is going to stay with this binge kind of dropping the entire season at once with this kind of binge culture that they've kind of basically created, where you can watch the entire season in a weekend setting, whereas Disney Plus and HBO Max are doing the weekly kind of old school approach and building audiences kind of naturally. It makes you
Yeah,
want.
I prefer though when they do it weekly because then the YouTubers can like review each episode and kind of keep it
I like to,
going, you know?
yeah, gives you something to look forward to. And I know that
Yeah,
when I wait a year for Cobra Kai on Netflix, it's one of my favorite shows of all
I love
time.
that show. Yeah.
It's always on my birthday, the premiere, and I always stay up. And but after it's after it's done, it's like, oh, like now I have to wait a year. Like
I know.
kind of waiting weekly, I think would build up a lot more anticipation. Like Euphoria on HBO now, the anticipation for the season finale next week is through the roof because he's built up the story for a whole season. Um, and I think it's very clever. So I'm wondering if Netflix will ever change their approach, because that might have helped Cowboy Bebop. They may not have had the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do, what
Well,
it's downloads or views, right?
yeah, I don't know how it works. Because the thing was, this is what I really don't get about the Cowboy Bebop thing is it was controversial, yeah, because the hardcore original anime people were ragging on it. But then I talked to some of my friends that were really into anime, and all my friends liked it. I mean, they said, well, it's not the same as the anime, but you don't want it to be. You want it to be something different. They take a different take on it. And they thought it was really cool. I never saw the anime, so I just saw the live action version. So I had no background on what it was supposedly supposed to be. But
Right.
that's
Oh, yeah.
fine. I mean, the thing that sold me on it is they put out a trailer that was like the trailer itself was a piece of art. It was like amazing what they did with the trailer. There was one trailer that was just kind of a typical one, but there was another one that was super cool. It like had the whole 60s vibe to it. And they would cut the way that they would transition from one scene to the next in the trailer was amazing how they did it. And there was all these fight scenes and then the way the music flowed through it and just the whole vibe that it created was just I thought was like totally right on. And I'm like, wow, this is like the best trailer I've ever seen. And so by then I was already sold on the show. I hadn't even seen the
Yeah.
first episode yet.
My friend
So,
really liked it too. I have to check that out. I
yeah.
like that kind of mind-bending sci-fi where they kind of mix genres a little bit. It's a little
Yeah.
not steampunk, but
There was some kind of steampunky stuff in there
yeah,
in it. Um,
that's cool. Like Boba Fett's like mostly a Western, like
right.
has been. Mandalorian too has that Western kind of good, the bad, and the
Yeah.
ugly thing going on.
Yeah.
You're actually dueling in the streets, like you pull your
Yep.
you're faster than the other, and that Westerns, like I said, are making I feel like they're
Making a big comeback. Yeah. And to tell you the truth, I've only seen one episode of a Boba Fett, so I'm way behind on that one. But I've seen all of Mandalorian, and totally Mandalorian 2 is so well put together. It's just so intelligently done once it started rolling, once Baby Yoda showed up.
Oh yeah.
And the music is just really, I think, is excellent. It just completely has that Western vibe. Like the moment you hear the music, you're like, this is a space Western.
Yeah.
You tell just from the score. And so
Boba Fett score, I hope you gotta let me know what you think, because it's good.
oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'm kind of, it's funny, like when you're a content creator, you're so busy creating your own stuff that you don't have time to watch all these shows. You have to like budget when am I going to find the time to watch even the shows that I really like? And so
I have to have my nights where I'm Sunday nights is Euphoria. Tuesday nights is usually movie night at Regal because it's $5 and there's always something usually to see. And then I listen to a ton of podcasts throughout the day when I'm working. So it can be hard to and then you got your own things, editing and then pushing them out, marketing them. It's a lot of work for sure.
So as an independent filmmaker, do you find yourself editing your stuff or do you hire an editor?
As far as editing, I'm very bad at editing, and not because I don't have the skill, I don't have the patience for it. So usually I'll find an editor that I really like
Okay.
that loves to edit.
Mhm.
I have toyed around with the idea since I basically taught myself how to podcast, like, uploads and edit audio. I know how to do that and
Okay.
make MP3s and all kinds of things, and basically had to lock myself up for the weekend to teach myself how to do it.
Yeah.
I know that if I invested money in a good system and got the Adobe Works, suite,
Right.
and took a long weekend, I know
Yeah.
I could do it, but I just don't want to right now. I
Yeah.
think it'll be an addiction slash.
It's a time sucker.
Yeah.
So I use Premiere Pro, and
Mhm.
occasionally, very rarely, I'll use After Effects. And but yeah, see, yeah, if you don't have time, especially if you're a parent of young kids,
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you're editing, you can easily spend hours on like 10 seconds worth of material.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you really want it to really look the way you want it to, and just going through all those takes, finding the right take, and then trying to get the angles the way you want, and just get it all composed right, and then color correction and blah 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 blah. The sound, the background music, all that, it takes forever to produce something that's really good.
Yeah. In film school, I was always C minus in editing class. I mean, I did the bare minimum just to get the assignment in. I've never tried anything fancy. It was always angle, wide, over the shoulder. Just never played around with anything else. And my professor, he knew it. He's like, you are lazy with this. I'm like, do not like this. What's passing in a class you don't like? A C. So I'll take the C.
What school did you go to for film school?
I actually went to SUNY Dutchess. It's I started going to Marist College in Poughkeepsie. My mom was a adjunct professor there, and it was my first college experience. So as long as I didn't run into mom on campus, I was like, sure, I'll take the free class. They had a radio, TV, film program. As soon as I started that program, I enjoyed the theater more than the film program. Theater was selective. I actually produced my first play there, and that's my first feature closure. They didn't have any hands-on film or editing or internship agreement. So at SUNY Dutchess, which was a 2-year program, associate level, they right from the get-go, from your 101 class, you're out shooting film on digital. And I really enjoyed that. And that led me to my internships in the city in New York. So yeah, I finished the 2-year program there. And Marist at the time was just more like corporate radio, corporate film, corporate video. Nothing wrong with any of that, but if you want to be creative, that's not really where you want to be. You want to get your hands dirty right away,
Right. Well, a lot of people, well, now with YouTube, I mean, there's a lot of people that are just kind of learn by doing, myself included. So I just basically just started doing it. And then
you got the subscribers, and I saw your past interview, a couple of minutes of that one. Very intriguing stuff. You definitely can hold a conversation, and that's not a lot of people can.
Yeah. Which one was it that you watched?
It was the one right before this one, I believe. Let me see. Let's see.
I like doing interviews. Well, one thing I discovered, one of the reasons, to tell you the truth, why I started doing interviews is I'm like, okay, I'm doing these Star Trek shows that take me like 6 to 9 months to create one episode that's 30 minutes long. So I got to figure out a way to create some other content in between.
I do. I do my podcast interviews, and in between I do a lot of like TikTok duets, or really quick, I have a thing called 60-second movie reviews for people that don't want to dissect the film for an hour and a half.
Right.
Those are a lot of fun. My son and me are avid Funko Pop collectors. We were just in Everett at at headquarters, and he has a little review channel on TikTok, and that's growing. He does little
Oh,
reviews
great.
each TikTok and of each Funko Pop. To answer your question, it was
Yeah.
the first couple of minutes of Justin Perry's interview.
Oh yeah, Justin. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I discovered is, at least for me, interviews, I mean, it's pretty much the guest is the one who provides most of the content.
Yeah, hopefully.
And then, I mean, all we do is talk. We just have to kind of navigate our way through what they're interested in. And so my usual technique is, like, it's very rare that we even prepare some questions
Oh
at
yeah.
the time. You know, we just start talking, and basically, because I don't have to like fit it into a 20-minute slot
Mhm.
and get bam, 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 bam. I mean, it can run for an hour and a half. And as long as we're talking about interesting things like real human beings, it's worth watching. You
Yeah.
know, that's pretty much it. But I really, actually, really like I like these kind of podcasts where it's very informal, because then it's not like you're trying to put on a show. Really, you get to actually see a person as a real person, and that's what's so fascinating. I mean, that's why reality TV took
Mhm.
off. You know, because you get to see what people really care about and what they really deal with, and you can totally identify with it. You know.
Like, people like to relate to other people, and I would definitely agree. Reality TV was a huge monster. When did
Yeah.
that start taking off? Really, like in the '90s? Like it seemed like.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I think it was probably right around when America's Funniest Home Videos started getting big. But there was a time when like everything on TV was a reality show. There was like no sitcoms or any normal shows anymore. It was just all reality.
Well, they're super cheap to produce too.
Right. They're cheap. You don't even have to have a script. You
Yeah.
just can have a basic idea of what's going to happen, you know, and then everybody just improvs and acts like themselves. And if they're talking about their real life, then there's a whole interesting story there. Just about anybody who's lived a life on planet Earth has an interesting story to tell. You
Yeah.
know, you just got to basically just create the space and give them the encourage them a little and get them to tell their story. You
Yeah.
know,
That's where the producers come in. Yeah, those reality show producers are
yeah,
always pushing buttons and egging things on, wanting the story, kind of move along.
right.
Different, for
And I
sure.
mean, you can still you edit it some. If it's a reality show, you can take that and put it into something halfway coherent. But like these kind of podcast things, um, every once in a while I'll do a little bit of editing, but it's mostly just because somebody let off an F-bomb,
Oh
or
yeah.
they trashed somebody that they shouldn't have, you know, or they said something that just didn't land and they wish they hadn't said it, so we take it out. But most of the time I keep stuff in.
Yeah.
So
YouTube doesn't like the F bombs.
yeah. I've got this thing, like, you know, which works.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I always forget to use it right in the heat of the moment,
Right.
but it's there just in case.
Some people have their strong emotional feelings and dialogue on certain subjects. Sure.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So when's this
So
Orville coming out?
what's this?
This Orville season 3 premiere, is it announced yet?
Well, it was supposed to be like March 11th, I think. And so everybody was all psyched for it. But then they recently said it got bumped out to June.
Oh, okay.
And there's a couple theories out there. So one is I think the theory that's probably the most accurate is that they wanted to wait until Star Trek had released all its stuff, you know, and so they wouldn't have to compete with like Picard or Strange New Worlds.
Oh
So
yeah, it's a new one. Yeah.
yeah, so that's, I think, probably the reason why they did it. Or I mean, it could be that they didn't finish their post-production, but I don't think that's true. So
Yeah.
I think it's more just a marketing thing where they tried to find the right spot where they want to release it. So, but supposedly all the cast and the people involved say that season 3 is going to be super good. And like they say every episode is like a feature length film. It's
Cool.
that quality. So I'm looking
Nice.
forward to it.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely have to get that out. And I have time to catch up on some of the season 2 that I missed. It's been a
Yeah.
while. Pandemic
Yeah.
really slowed a lot of things down.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, that's what a lot of people are going for. And like I'm pushing to get episode 4 of my show out soon. Episode 3 came out in August, and I was like, okay, from now on, I'm going to do a show every 3 months. Well, it's February, so that's like what, 6 months from then, and I'm still not done yet. So,
Egotastic Trek, Bridge
yeah,
Over.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Egotastic Trek with Captain Hardinger, and then JP of Egotastic Fun Time. He's
cool.
my cohort. That's how we came up with the name of Egotastic Trek. His YouTube channel is called Egotastic Fun Time. And though he just switched it to Talking the Orville because he's a real Orville fan.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I've got this one. We spend quite a bit of the episode in the Matrix. So I've got a lot of stuff where I use green screens to put us in the Matrix and interact with the various actors in the Matrix movies.
Did you like the newest Matrix movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'll save my feelings for then.
Yeah, I know some people like it. Some people are like,
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say that they really liked the first Matrix movie, but then all the rest of them were kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
But I will say that in Egotastic Trek, the very first scene we do in the Matrix is from the second movie, where there's a scene in the subway with the train man, and with the guy who runs like the he's like the power plant manager. He's an Indian guy with his wife, and their daughter. Yep. That's the very first scene that I used to kick off our Matrix journey.
This is episode 3 that you're 4.
Episode 4, yeah.
Okay, that's coming.
There's actually a teaser out there. If you go to my channel, there's a teaser called "Trapped in the Matrix."
Okay.
It's like 2 minutes long. It's about 75% of that scene, and I was like, oh, I should just make a teaser out of this. That's what I did.
Cool. Yeah, I see right here. I'll have to look at that.
Just today, I was shooting a scene where Captain Hardinger, played by me, talks to the Oracle.
Okay. Yep.
And I just shot that scene today, and now I'm editing it together. That's a fun one. You know, like where he accidentally pushes over the vase and it breaks, and then all that stuff that goes on. And she's baking her cookies and she's smoking her cigarettes and talking about.
You know that was going to happen or something.
Right.
Like, what if I did, but you still have done it? So it's like, wow, this is so meta. Wow.
All that stuff. Oh, well, and that's the cool. See, the thing for me, what I remember about the Matrix is all that mind trippy stuff, and like all the action sequences were cool, but they didn't have any meaning to me. Like, especially these days, because we're so overblown with action sequences in movies. Like, you get sick of it after a while, no matter how hard it is to do and how impressive it is, all the stunts and stuff. It's like, I'm done. I'm like burned out on action sequences.
But what gets me, the fighting, like I'm so lost on like a good fight scene is like it's choreographed either too well or you can't tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I like the John Wick movies because you can actually, they're so over the top. It's kind of funny, but you can see what's actually happening and the camera's not caught in the middle, whizzing around. You can see the stunts, and I don't know, the Bourne Identity movies, it kind of took me out of it because you can't really see who's hitting who or what's
going on. I can see why they did it, because they wanted to create the chaos that really happens when you're in a fight.
True. Yeah.
That's true. So
it's not all beautiful and choreographed in slow motion when you're
fighting. Right. Yeah.
And being awkward for sure.
Yep. Yeah. That's anyway. So that's the kind of stuff. Well, see, like, I like to obviously I just cherry pick the shows I like, and then I figure out some way to put them in my own show.
Hmm.
And then, but it's fun. It's kind of a good way to learn how to do film too. And also it's helped me learn how to act, because what I have to do is, I have to match the actors that I'm interacting with, right? So I've got these professional big name actors, and they're using a certain style that fits this movie and this scene. And then I have to figure out how my acting can match them, so that I can be somewhere in the ballpark with them, so that, it's believable, so it's actually, I've learned a lot from that point of view, though I've learned absolutely nothing about how to build a set, because all I do is steal sets from every other movie on the planet. I've learned how to do lighting I've learned how to match the lighting of whatever scene I'm trying to put myself in, right?
Cool.
And so, that kind of stuff. But like, for example, like shooting a scene with multiple actors on a real set with a whole bunch of lighting and a whole bunch of sound equipment, all that to me sounds just like mind-boggling. I could never do that from the skill set I have right now, because everything I do is just one person at a time in a studio that's all set up, everything's set up, the green screens, the lighting is all there, and I can just slam it out really fast. And then basically, then all the rest of the work is just in the editing, color correcting and all that, and then just trying to frame it all right. But because you've got green screens, you have a lot of leeway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, because digital cameras are so good now, right? You can take a wide shot and you can zoom in on it, and it's still sharp enough to work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some people will say the really hardcore people will say you can't do that. I can tell. But the funny thing is, in what I do, I can, because a lot of the footage that I'm matching to is really not that sharp. It's already a little fuzzy, So a lot of times I find myself, I have to actually intentionally blur my actors to get them to match with what I'm putting them in.
You just rip some of the footage?
Yeah, I mean, most of it I just get off YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
And that way, the reason why I do that is it's kind of already been vetted. So if it's up on YouTube, that means it hasn't been taken down, right?
Smart.
So that means I have much less chance of getting a copyright strike,
Yeah, sure.
A lot of times, I mean, almost always, I can't monetize my stuff because there's going to be something in there that somebody's going to claim. But as long as they don't actually make me take it down, I'm fine. I just give them the money, and it's no big deal. I mean, great. So they get the $2 or whatever. I don't care.
People claim. I mean, I have to 60-second videos and get claimed all the time on the music. And even though the music is pulled directly from TikTok or from TikTok's library, that still gets claimed. It's like,
sometimes, and it's interesting because sometimes I've had a few things where I got a completely bogus claim, or like, for example, I used this piece of classical music that was totally public domain. It had been around for 300 years, which is the theme to Masterpiece Theater. And it was my group playing it, right? So it was totally public domain. And they tried to block it because they said I was using the Masterpiece Theater theme. And I was like, no, I'm not. Masterpiece Theater is using this piece written by this guy that was 300 years ago.
Yeah.
I actually contested it, and they finally, it took like 3 months, but they finally unblocked it.
Good.
I was surprised, actually, because usually it's most of the time once YouTube blocks it, good luck trying to get it unblocked.
I'm glad you got that unblocked. It helps other creators too.
Yeah. Well, do you ever watch Rick Beato? Have you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
He's a really super talented guitar player and record producer, and a total demon as far as music theory goes. Like
Uh,
the guy just knows tons of music theory, and he does shows. And he does all kinds of cover songs, and then he has videos where it's like, what makes this song great, and then he'll play the song, he'll play all the riffs, and he'll play it really well, and he'll totally analyze the song and tell you everything about it that makes it good. And most of the time he can do it, but there's certain bands where he can never do because the people who own the rights will always shoot it down. Like, unfortunately, he can't do Queen because it's not even like the band is shooting it down. It's more like whoever owns the
label,
the
right?
rights is just a really old school type of person, and like, you can't use our stuff. You're stealing our stuff. And they just haven't realized that, no, they're not stealing your stuff. They're giving you free advertising. They're advertising your stuff for free.
Yeah.
Because of this guy's YouTube channel, kids who'd never heard of Queen are now going to go download Queen, you know?
I know
So,
that music licensing is a whole industry within itself.
yeah.
I remember we were trying to get this 50s for a horror film. We were trying to get this 50s doo-wop that no one had ever heard of, but working with that company to get the licensing, they wanted like a ridiculous amount of money for it.
Yeah.
And then we ended up paying it, but they only let us keep it up for the festival run, and then had us take it down. So
yeah,
it's a racket.
Yeah, well, luckily when it's on YouTube, it's now the things are in place. There's so much automatic stuff in place now that you can, most of the time, you could just, the YouTube bots will handle it well, and everybody gets their fair share.
Yeah.
But of course, if it's going to be in a movie theater and you're going to sell tickets, that's a whole different deal.
That's when the money comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, so when do you think your latest movie is gonna come out, do you think?
So we're shooting early this year on purpose. Dream Cycle will hopefully be hitting the festival route, so we'll hopefully have that in the can. Let's see. I would say by May it should be done. And then I'll keep everybody posted on what festivals it gets into and where it's premiered.
That's cool.
Director won a San Diego film festival last time with his other film. And then my feature film, Couches, is starting to film. We've already started shooting footage for it, but the bulk of it will be done in April in Portland and Spokane. Just trying to gather, make sure all the actors are available for the amount of time we are. I usually have a lot of independent filmmakers will work on weekends. I have better luck just taking 2.5 weeks off and just jumping in, going for it, and everything we can and get it into an edit and see what we have to work with. Because
how it would be so hard to do continuity if you're shooting every weekend and trying to string it all together and make it all not look all chopped up.
Not all chopped up. Yeah. And in this story, he goes to several of the same houses, Couches. He goes to several of the same houses throughout the story. So continuity is going to be, important.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what we come up with. And the 2 podcasts that I work on are taping this week and then also dropping. I do a lot of I don't edit too much of the audio unless it's something bonkers like you mentioned.
Right.
So quickly, Anchor lets you just do a quick drop on that. So yeah, I definitely want to be as creative as possible. Pandemic kind of slowed down a lot of those juices for a lot of us. So
yeah,
at mad props and kudos to anybody that got through, was creative during that. I mean, what a time that was.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So I want to ask you a little bit about this whole film. So I don't know anything about this stuff. So what you say is if you're an independent filmmaker and the dream is you make your film and then it goes to a bunch of festivals and then a couple of the star shows.
So there's a couple different ways. Usually festivals are a quick way to get attention now, but the thing is with festivals now that market's become saturated.
Okay.
So every city has like a festival now.
Okay.
What you want to do is you want to get into the bigger festivals, or you want to get into some kind of compilation with other kind of similar shorts or genres of shorts that premiere on like HBO or premiere on like Stars or Sundance. So a lot of these bigger, like HBO, for instance, now are catering to short film compilations.
Okay.
Um, or you want to go like the Oscar route where it has to play in a certain amount of cities for a certain amount of time. You have to follow kind of like the Academy Award criteria to get your short film
Mm.
to be considered for Academy nomination.
And then the
Or
idea is like if it starts to gain some traction and some people are liking it, then you're trying to attract donors that are going to back it. Is that how
yeah,
it works?
yeah. So a lot of times what people do,
Or investors, I mean.
yeah, a lot of times what people do is they write the short film is just a section of a bigger story. So, for instance, Whiplash was a short film, like the last act of that film, of that story. But because of that, 15 minutes, it told the story in that little time frame. But there's a a bigger story around that. So what they did is it got notoriety, and then the filmmaker got funds to make the entire story.
Right.
This film that I'm working on right now, Dream Cycle, could very much be a feature film as well. And so I try to write any short I'm working on the same way. Like if you're going to do it, you want it to be.
Okay.
Here.
So then, okay, so let's say you do a short film and it takes off, it gets some attention. People are like, this is cool. Let's make a feature film.
Mhm.
Do they typically just redo the whole thing with new actors and everything? Or do they try to take that film and then just expand with what you already got?
It depends. It can work both ways. I know for Whiplash, J.K. Simmons was in the original short film, and then they kept him for the bigger one. Napoleon Dynamite was a short film. They kept the original actor for that.
Okay.
Um, it all depends on how much budget you get, but usually, usually, if you can get a big actor to help you out with your short, or any actor to help you out with your short, there's been some kind of sacrifice on their end. So you kind of want to bring them along for the journey if you get to the feature film level.
Okay.
And if it's not in the same role, definitely in another role. So you want to, the film industry and film crews and cast are very, you want to say like club oriented. Like you want to find a good crew and good cast to work with. Typically want to stick with that same
Right.
group of people, especially if you've grown together. And
And it's kind of, I get the feeling it's kind of an ecosystem too. It's like you want to, most of the time, you don't want to burn your bridges. You want to just pretty much just keep spreading good everywhere.
yeah,
And then everybody's giving everybody favors.
yeah,
And
in a perfect
that's,
world, yeah.
yeah.
That's what's happened. Obviously,
Right.
there's going to be burnt bridges, whether you want to or not. But
Right.
typically, you find a good group of people that you work with. Like with Jerry, I mean, I worked with him back when I was first directing these fan films, and I was very nervous. It was a huge crew, tons of people around me, lots of pressure. But Jerry was the calming force and reassured me, yes, I'm going to throw someone through 4 sheets of plywood, but they're going to be fine because the way they land, they're landing on cushions, and we're going to do this right. And you just focus on getting your shots and your story. I'll handle this guy. Well, Jerry was always a reassuring force in my life when it came to this. And during my divorce, I ran into Jerry at a film festival down in LA, and he gave me some advice on that. He became like a mentor. And then I moved up to Coeur d'Alene, close to Coeur d'Alene, thinking I'm completely out of the loop with film. And my friend Amy's like, "Have you heard of Mystery Ranch Studio?" And I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's Jerry." Jerry said he always wanted to live in Idaho. Sure enough, it's a small world. So
right.
You definitely want to be as loyal to the good people that you have around you, and you do them favors, and it's very symbiotic that way. Boomerangs,
Right.
It always comes around, and that's with any art community, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, well, I mean, it used to be like TV used to be like everybody was competing with everyone else, at least for who got the slots,
Mm-hmm.
the time slots on the channels. But now with streaming and everything, it's like you don't even have to be like that anymore. It's just like everybody can just kind of support everyone,
Yeah,
you know?
social media is massive for that. I mean, we have this free
Yeah,
platform, free marketing. It's unbelievable. I mean,
yeah,
unheard of. This was, I don't know. It's just crazy how you can get your name out there with really not spending any money, just
yeah.
getting followers to follow your content. And I believe it's very symbiotic. And if anything, I think the pandemic really leveled the playing field on who's accessible and who's not. I mean, the Screen
That's
Actors,
true.
yeah, they released this whole new contract, the Screen Actors Guild. That's what my film is under. Anything
It's called new media, right?
new
Yeah, I've heard of
media,
that. Yeah.
um, digital, yeah, something. I have to look it up, but it's anything for under 20 grand in budget. And as long as you get approved by a Screen Actors Guild, which our film did, you can approach any manager, any agent for their talent. And between you and the talent, should
Hmm.
you get that far,
Mm-hmm.
you can stipulate the conditions of getting that talent on there. Now, getting through to the manager and through the agent, I mean, that's a whole other ballgame because
Right.
agents aren't always the most pleasant people in the world to work with. They
Well,
have
they want a gig that they're going to get some money out of.
right, and they
Right.
also want to protect their clients from any Joe Schmo calling saying, "Hey, I have a camera. Can I talk to Lindsay Lohan or can I
Right.
talk to Zendaya? I have a camera. I want to do a film." They want to make sure that you're legit. You have a budget.
Right.
I always found that managers were a lot easier to approach than agents. I always had better
Oh,
luck.
maybe I don't know what the difference between an agent and a manager is then.
Managers are like long term. They kind of guide your career,
Okay.
give you little nudges as to maybe what script you should work with, maybe what type of persona the public thinks of you as. An agent, make sure that you're going to get the best bang for your buck. They're going to make sure you're not being jostled around.
Mm.
I'm not sure if you ever watch Entourage with Jeremy Piven, but he played Ari Gold, one of like the powerhouse agent. That's based on what's that guy's name? He's based on a real agent, but he was like Ari Emanuel, I think. Superpower agent that would get all these,
Right.
millions of dollars of deals for Brad Pitt and
Right.
Mel Gibson before he got
Chris
into
Pine.
all these.
Yeah.
And then your manager, they want to guide you through your career. They're there for the career. They kind of, if you're known as the goofy Ashton Kutcher type, and then a serious role like the Butterfly Effect comes around, cool sci-fi premise that he produced.
Right.
Your manager will be there to, hey, this is a good idea, or no one's going to buy this as you being serious. And that's more what they're there for, to kind of guide your career.
Well, look at Robin Williams.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
someone that went complete 180 and people loved him no matter what. He earned that. He was super talented on both ends. And most comedians are very dramatic actors. Jim Carrey, Kristen Wick has also proven herself as a dramatic actress. And
Yeah.
I love a good comedian that can.
Well, I have a friend who like comedy is his whole religion, and he takes it very seriously. It's so funny. He takes comedy very seriously. Even that is a joke in itself, But what I've learned from him over the years, we used to be college roommates, and we're still buddies. We like send each other Facebook messages every day, and but what I learned is like really good comedy always has some really serious, intelligent stuff underneath the surface.
Yeah.
That's what makes it good. That's what gives it its content,
Even Airplane has some intelligently written one-liners, and the Zucker brothers, they did Naked Gun. Those are all brilliantly written scripts. They're just tongue-in-cheek, but very smart.
Yeah, well, the neat thing is like also it's a medium. It's kind of like Star Trek or Twilight Zone too. Is you have a captive audience in this genre that people like. They know they like it, but then once you have them in there, then you can start telling them really meaningful stories. It's just kind of the same thing. Like with comedy, you keep them laughing, and in between the jokes, well, okay, the Orville does the same thing. In between the jokes, you can hit some really serious issues and really important stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a great medium,
I agree.
you know.
Comedy is hard too to pull
Yeah.
off.
Okay, well, before we wrap up, so I on your other interview, I saw that you like to write love stories, right?
Um, I write most. I mean, what other interview was that?
It was the one where they were talking about the anamorphic lens.
Oh yeah, John was the one that likes to write love story. I mean, he
Oh,
the one.
okay.
John Garcia. We had the same last name.
Okay.
I produced for him. I'm more of the working on. Most of my stories are about unlikely friendships that develop.
Okay.
That's my niche. He's definitely more of the romantic.
Okay, I got you guys mixed up again.
Oh, it's okay. Same last name. Happen. People always ask, "Are you guys brothers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, we could be. You know,
Your
why
soul
not?"
brothers.
Soul brothers. John's a
Yeah.
very talented. That guy's got like 10 feature films under his belt already. Uh, he just rolls with the punches. He did one called Love and Dangerous Times right when the pandemic hit. Another project got held up. He called some people, let's make a movie about the pandemic, a rom-com during the pandemic, and boom, 6 weeks later, he's got a feature film. You know, that's
Wow,
kind of
that was fast.
it's kind of stuff I want to do.
That's really fast.
Yeah, and you know, it's because of this digital world that we live in, and pooling in favors, having an editor that you're used to working with, and talent that's willing to roll with the punches, wanting to be clever, wanting to be work with something different. And they
Wow. I mean, like, how do you even get the soundtrack and the background music done that quick?
Oh, I wouldn't say completely done. I would say in the can, like it's filmed, and then
Oh, okay.
probably
So it
another
wasn't released yet. Okay.
no, probably the other 3 or 4 months
Okay.
for post production. But like as far as filming, I think it took them like 6 weeks, something ridiculous,
Okay.
like, in a good way, and it's a good movie. But yeah, most of my stories are about very unlikely friendships because I always make friends with the most. You would never guess you would be friends with the group of Mormon kids up the street, or um, you know vets that normally don't like sci-fi but will come over for a beer and watch sci-fi with me. It's like I like that kind of stuff. So I think
Interesting.
most friendships are unlikely if you think about it. So
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that topic in my stories.
That's cool. Well, I want to watch some of your stuff, so you'll have to send me some links. Of course, I mean, send me links. We'll put lots of links to your stuff in the description,
Huh?
of course.
Yeah.
And also for your YouTube channel and your podcast too.
Yeah. I have on my
Um,
podcast, I have all of my short films in the category. So I'll send you links to all
okay.
that, my Twitters and
All that
Instagram.
stuff. Yeah, we'll put it. It's all going to be right down there.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And I'll do the same when you are on. If you want to talk TV and you have a like a sci-fi show that you love, we love to deep dive into those shows. Or if you just want to do this, the Ponder All
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to be a guest on your show. That'd be fun.
A
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Great. Well, I got to wrap it up because I got to teach a violin lesson soon.
Yeah, I gotta go
And
pick up one of my friends here too. It's already 6:30. Wow. Well, have a good lesson. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
certainly,
I
and we'll
appreciate
keep in touch.
it. Yeah. All
All right.
right,
Take
enjoy
care.
All right, take care.
Pranakasha Production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta